Prime Minister, I'd like to start this conversation with the bombing in Mariupol yesterday of the Children's Hospital. Putin appears to have committed a war crime. What will it take for the West to get directly involved in this? Is killing children and pregnant women not enough?
I think what happened in Mariupol in that maternity hospital really shows that Putin is prepared just to reject, to abandon all norms of civilized behavior, and the sort of cynicism with which the Russian Sergei Lavrov admitted that they'd attacked that maternity hospital shows the depths to which they will stoop. And what we will do, of course, we already are involved, Beth, in the sense that we are, from the beginning, the UK was the first European donor of defensive military equipment. We've massively ramped that up, and what we're doing now, as you can see, is tightening the vice, tightening the pressure on Vladimir Putin's regime through economic sanctions, and targeting not just SWIFT, not just his banks, but as many of his people who are known to be associated with him as we possibly can.
And I will come to that. But
I think that, when you look at something like the Mariupol, I don't know, but I think many of our viewers must have been absolutely shocked.
Lavrov said concerns over civilian casualties were, to quote him, pathetic shrieks.
But I'm afraid that is just where they are, and that is what we're dealing with. And I'll make you one other prediction, by the way, which is that the stuff that you're hearing about chemical weapons, this is straight out of their playbook. They start saying that there are chemical weapons that have been stored by their opponents or by the Americans, and so when they themselves deploy chemical weapons, as I fear they may, they have a sort of a maskirovka, a fake story ready to go. And you've seen it in Syria. You saw it even in the UK when.
This is what you expect next, then?
Look, I just note that is what they're already doing. It is a cynical, barbaric government, I'm afraid. And so, on your point about Beth, on your point about war crimes, I think it's the right question to ask. And as it happens, the Lord Chancellor, the Deputy Prime Minister, Dom Raab, has a lot of experience in this. He was one of those who was involved in putting Slobodan Milosevic before the Hague for trial, the Serb leader, for war crimes. And he will be going off to the Hague to see what they need, what evidence we can help to supply.
But in the meantime, Prime Minister, the bombing of a maternity hospital, at least 516 civilians have been killed, the use of cluster bombs, thermobaric weapons, the threat of chemical weapons, troops opening fire on fleeing families, shelling of civilian humanitarian corridors, airstrikes on residential blocks. Is it not on your conscience every time you speak to President Zelenskyy and he asks you for that no-fly zone? It must.
It is.
How can you not?
It's terrible. I've got to say, it's absolutely terrible. And I've got a massive admiration for Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And I think any leader in his position would be saying exactly the same thing. They'd be saying, why can't you provide that air cover? Why can't you, as the West, simply help to clear our skies of Russian planes and stop us being bombarded from the air, stop this evil going on in Europe? And we've had some very frank conversations, and ones in which have been deeply upsetting.
You won't
because
do it.
The difficulty is the difficulty is that there is a line beyond which, quite frankly, the UK and NATO would be deemed to be in conflict, direct conflict, with Russia.
So no circumstances. If as you say, they could drop chemical weapons, is that not the red light? Nothing. Well, is there nothing that could happen that might make you change your mind?
It's agonising. It's absolutely agonising, and I've had this conversation at least a couple of times now with Volodymyr. But I think the difficulty is that it would require me to order RAF jets, UK pilots into the air with a mission to shoot down Russian fast jets. And that is something that all my life, literally all my life, all my childhood, I remember something that we did everything we possibly could to avert, because that would be conflict between two P5 nuclear powers,
just to be clear,
two members of the Security Council.
Under no circumstances can that happen. Is that what you're saying?
I think we've got to be realistic, and we're going to do everything we can to support the Ukrainian people, to support the amazing, heroic Ukrainian resistance, and we're doing more and more with support with air defences, with anti-tank weaponry, and all that kind of thing. I don't want to go into the details, but I think our viewers know roughly what we're doing. It has been ramped up, but that is effectively a defensive measure. But I just want to stress that there's no Western country where that is on the agenda.
When you speak to President Zelenskyy a lot, every time you put the phone down to him, do you wonder whether that might be the last conversation that you'll have with him?
So listen, I think Volodymyr has been one of the most extraordinary leaders of recent times in the way he's rallied. He's not only rallied his people, he's rallied the whole world to the cause of Ukraine. And he's made us all wear yellow and blue flags. And he's got everybody mobilized on his side. I think because he's so clearly and brilliantly delineated the difference between right and wrong in this case. Everybody can see that this is an unjustified act of aggression by Putin.
He did an interview on Sky News last night, and he said he thinks millions of people could die. Do you think millions of people could die in this conflict?
I think that it depends on Putin, and it's up to him and to him alone, and that everybody can see that things aren't progressing in the way that he hoped.
Prime Minister,
and his best bet, I think, is to withdraw, to cease the violence, and to allow a peaceful negotiation to begin.
Let's go on to Vladimir Putin. 2 weeks into this war, it's already unbearable to see the images coming out of the Ukraine. Your Foreign Secretary said it could last a decade. Do you agree with that?
I think that, again, that depends on Putin. But what I certainly think is that the Ukrainians themselves and the will to resist in Ukraine will never be extinguished.
I get that, but how long is it going to go on for?
You heard that from Volodymyr Zelenskyy
we're in for
himself.
The long haul.
I think that my own view is that Vladimir Putin can either choose to accept that he's made a catastrophic mistake now, or accept that he's made a catastrophic mistake a bit later on.
But when?
And that's the difference between the two options he faces.
But how long?
That is, I'm afraid, up to the Kremlin. I wish Beth, I wish that I could tell you how long it will be. I think that he has said that he wants to give the military operations till the end of this month. You've heard what Putin's own narrative is. I myself don't believe, and I don't think most people looking at the situation believe. I don't think that he can conquer Ukraine. Ukraine is a country of 45 million people.
But Prime Minister, you keep saying that Putin must fail.
I do.
But do you acknowledge that Putin in his mind must be seen to win? That's the problem. You keep saying he's going to fail, but he has to win. So how do we get out of this?
I think that he needs to understand that his options are not good now.
But you accept that he needs to have some sort of victory. What's the off-ramp?
Well, when you say needs, that I don't know what you quite mean by needs.
What's the off-ramp for
what
him?
I think is that the best way out for Russia, for the Russian people, is for withdrawal of the Russian forces and for total cessation of hostilities, for reparations. And I think we will all have to work together to rebuild Ukraine, be in no doubt. But that's just the beginning.
But you accept the point that he won't be able to fail.
I think you've put your finger on something very important, which is that I think that Vladimir Putin has himself made it very difficult to find an off-ramp. And he has, I think, driven his tanks, so to speak, down a cul-de-sac from which it will be very hard to extricate himself, but he must.
But in the meantime, millions of people are going to die, so how do you help him get an off-ramp? I mean, what's the compromise? What's the compromise? Should Ukraine say, OK, we'll withdraw our application for NATO? Or, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is all I see is escalation, and I understand the sanctions, but it's escalating, there's no de-escalation, and in the meantime, millions of people could die. I
think what needs to happen, first of all, is that Putin needs to understand that he's made a catastrophic miscalculation, and he needs to withdraw, he needs to stop killing innocent people in Ukraine. I then think that there is certainly space for a conversation about the future, but it's got to be in that context, and it's got to be something that the people of Ukraine and the Ukrainian government actively want, Beth. And I think this is the crucial thing. I don't think that you can have a conversation about Ukraine without Ukraine. They've got to be at the table.
But it does seem to me that
they've got to be willing to engage with those conversations.
You can't see a way out at the moment.
I can't see a way out that doesn't begin with the realization by the Kremlin that they've made a catastrophic mistake and that it's time to begin to withdraw. It's time to withdraw immediately.
So let me just move on to sort of domestic response and your leadership over that. In terms of sanctions, today you finally sanctioned Roman Abramovich and 6 other oligarchs, something people have been calling for a couple of weeks now. It's been welcome, but do you acknowledge you could have moved more quickly on this, and do you wish you had?
I think the UK has been absolutely out in front in the whole sanctions process, and don't just listen to me, listen to what the Ukrainians have said, look at what the Kremlin themselves have said about the UK's role in this. We drove the sanctions
why didn't you go
on SWIFT
sooner, though, on Abramovich? Was it just
on the central bank, on
Why didn't you go sooner,
but on those individuals, don't forget that we've already done 200 or 300 individuals, and in the UK we have pretty tight protections of property rights. From Tuesday, we'll be able to go much further and faster because we're changing the law under the Economic Crime Bill. What we've been able to do with the individuals who've been sanctioned today is to look at their relationship with the Russian regime. The due process has been gone through, all the evidence has been assembled, which is the right thing to do, and they've been sanctioned in a very tough way. But that's the way we've had to do it.
When you campaigned to take back control, was it so that when we have issues like the Ukraine crisis, that you can be more restrictive than the European Union when it comes to visas?
No, because if you look at what we're doing, we're historically and by nature a very, very generous and open, welcoming people.
But we've only issued 1,000.
People want to. Well, that was the number yesterday, and it's rising the whole time, and it will rise very sharply.
Have you personally intervened to try and fix it?
Very sharply. So
have you had to personally intervene?
On Monday, you'll get from the Levelling Up Secretary, you'll get the programme that will allow people to come in. So people want to welcome it into their own homes. They can do so. Now, you ask about checks.
I know you've said about checks and the need for biometric testing, but half of the 2 million refugees estimated to be are children. You don't need to biometrically test a child. I mean, it seems a bit heartless. Someone actually said to me yesterday, a cabbie, he said it's really heartless. Why don't they just waive the visa checks?
I'll tell you why. So for younger people, we're not being we're not making those requirements. But what we are doing is ensuring that. And I think this is the best thing also for refugees, because they want a scheme that is safe, that is welcoming, and that works. And if you've been to war zones, and as I'm sure you have, as I have, you'll know all sorts of things are going on there, and you'll find that there are people coming out of them who perhaps, for one reason or another, don't have the papers that they need, and may even have false papers. They may have a good reason for that, but it is sensible, given the attitudes of the Putin regime towards the UK. It is sensible to have checks.
So by the end of the year, will we have 20,000 refugees?
They are light touch checks, but I think that most people can see the case.
Prime Minister, I've got so many more questions,
and
but I'm going to have to wrap up.
On the numbers, it could go up.
Yeah.
Just on the family reunion thing, you could have a very large number indeed, because there are so many potential beneficiaries of that scheme, and that's great. But I mean, as I said in the Commons yesterday, I'm proud, as is Dom Raab, as is the Deputy Prime Minister, as is the Home Secretary. We're all the direct descendants of refugees.
PM,
and our government has done a lot. If you look at the people we took from Afghanistan, the numbers we've taken from Hong Kong. So I know what our viewers will want to know, because what the British people want to know is, are we going to be generous? And my answer is overwhelmingly
yes.
We're
We'll test you on that when we, because at the moment we haven't done very well on it, and I think the public are a bit annoyed.
I also think people want us to have checks.
Yeah, but I think people are annoyed that we haven't done more.
I think people
you
will
must accept that's a fair point for me to make.
People want us to be generous, but they also want us to be careful.
The final question I had for you, and this is about you levelling with the British people about the cost at home of this.
Yes.
Okay. Energy bills could go up to £3,000. Oil prices. I mean, do you even know what the cost of a litre of petrol now is?
It's high as ever.
It's 160 pence.
It is.
How bad is it going to be? Can you just level with people about the pain they're going to have to take?
So we will do everything. So we've frozen the fuel duty, for instance, for 12 years, and we will continue to do that. We will do everything we can to help households, help people with the cost of fuel, particularly elderly, vulnerable people, and you know all the packages of support we're putting in, even more that the Chancellor announced the other day. That's not going to be enough on its own. So the best thing for dealing with the cost of living, I mean, big picture, is to have a strong economy, good high-wage, high-skilled jobs, such as the ones that we're creating with our shipbuilding strategy, which you haven't mentioned, even though we're in this shipyard.
I'm sorry about that.
You could have done, but I'm going to mention it for you.
You're doing it for me.
I'm going to just slide it in there. We are launching our national ship. We're here in Camel Laird in Liverpool, but what we're also going to do, and this is absolutely vital. Not just have a high-wage, high-skill economy with record employment and almost record low youth unemployment, which is a great thing. What we're going to do is look at our energy supply. And what Putin is doing is proving how wrong we were in 2014 not to move away as Europeans, and the UK did more than other European countries, but we could do still more, to move away from dependence on Russian oil and gas. And so what I'm saying to you, Beth, is that now is the time, and it may be a bumpy period, but we will get through it as fast and as well as we possibly can. Now is the time to unleash an extraordinary program of energy independence.
A bumpy period.
Through massive investment in renewables, in more nuclear, a lot more nuclear, and also in sensible use of our own hydrocarbons, with our own oil and gas, without busting our carbon budget.
But we're all going to have to take the pain in trying to defeat Putin, aren't we?
So, yes, I think that is right. I think that the West, and absolutely right, Beth, I think that the West is going to have to learn the lesson of indulging and appeasing Putin and failing to wean ourselves off Russian oil and gas. And we are now going to do the dramatic steps that we need to take to have independent energy supply, so that we're no longer capable of being blackmailed by Putin. And that, I think, is the right thing to do.
Okay. Prime Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you.